Hi, this is Steve Gillmor. This is an abbreviated edition of the Gillmor Gang. We're coming to you from the usual place, as well as we've been bringing you a live feed of what is this that you've been involved with, Kevin?
This is the Google Technology Users Group, and there was a Buzz evening that myself and DeWitt Clinton spoke at. And we actually are in Building 43 at Google just for Robert's benefit.
Excellent. And we also have Robert Scoble available as well.
Yeah.
Directly from
can you, since we have the some of the coverage of DeWitt's talk, which we'll probably cut into this show so that we can refer to it, but could you give us an idea of what he was talking about? Obviously, it had to do with Google Buzz and open standards. Can you kind of summarize what went on?
Broadly, he was giving the protocol roundup of all the different open standards that underpin Google Buzz, from feeds, from Atom and RSS media, Atom Pub, PubSub Hubbub, and all the other stuff that you hear me go on at great length. And broadly, he's saying the point of Buzz was to see what they could build on top of that, and if the standards weren't ready yet, they would help extend those. So that was his take on that. That's from his perspective. Buzz is about building on the open protocols, and DeWitt is very active in the Open Web Foundation and that realm. So that's his take on Buzz. You may get a slightly different take if you talk to the PM of it.
How long is this going to take for them to duplicate friend feed so that we can actually use it?
Yeah, they're 3/4 of the way there. I mean, the challenge is actually making the stuff propagate back and forth. What they're trying to do is make it so that the stuff isn't just inside Buzz. It'll actually move back and forth between Buzz and friend feed and Twitter and others in a useful way. And the challenge of that is that we've expressed a bunch of standards, but there's still look and feel differences between them. So some of the edges don't quite work. If you pipe friend feed into Buzz now, it works, but you get the friend feed comments inside the Buzz comments, and you get this sort of thing inside the thing weirdness that's going on. So sort of streamlining that stuff is going to take a bit of work. But the WordPress announcement today was interesting. The WordPress is now doing PubSub Hubbub, which means it should feed into Buzz real-time updates in the same way Blogger does. That's certainly a marker there.
When you say it's going to take some time, right now it's taking a lot of time when you send something from, if you have Twitter incorporated into Buzz, it takes forever for tweets to come across. Do you have any idea why that is? You seem to have locked up. Have they turned off the Wi-Fi at Google to save money?
I think I'm just badly lit.
No? There you go. That's better.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert, isn't that true?
Twitter is lagging. I suspect they're not actually using the full fire hose to get stuff in from Twitter. I think they're crawling it. That's my sense of what's going on there.
It's both lagging and because
much faster.
Yeah, it's both lagging and because they didn't give us the ability to block tweets like friend feed has. It's really bad. I see too much noise there, and so it's really troubling. I find Buzz very difficult to use for what I want to use it for. It's great for a small group, but if you try to get more than 100 friends in there, it's really difficult to control what's appearing on your screen. Where in friend feed, we had such rich controls. We could turn off tweets from Kevin Marks. If I didn't want to see just your tweets, I could turn them off. I could turn off tweets system-wide, so I didn't have to see any tweets. Friend feed really gave you granular control in a way that Buzz still doesn't understand.
Yeah, no, that stuff is possible, but they've got to build UI for it and make that work. So, they said we're going to provide filters to make this stuff work better. That was the pitch they gave at the launch. I suspect they're just chasing, actually keeping it up and working and scaling at the moment, and the privacy thing. But I'm sure that they'll be looking at the data and saying, oh, can we do something useful with this? But there is a challenge in that Google's purview on this is always, can we do this algorithmically? Not can we give you a control to do it? So that they may be trying to do it automatically rather than giving you buttons and switches for it.
Yeah, but that just doesn't work because there's different types of users. Some people want to see tweets,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Steve Gillmor uses friend feed as his Twitter client. I don't use it that way. So we're two different users, and we need two different use models to make both of us happy. And that means giving us controls. And it's not going to be algorithmic because you can't figure out algorithmically whether I'm Steve Gillmor style user or a Robert Scoble style user or a Kevin Marks style user or a newbie user. You can't figure that out algorithmically.
I suspect we'll see what's happened with Twitter. With Twitter, there's the base website, and there's a bunch of clients that give you different behaviors, with friend feed and Seismic and Brizzly and the others all being that. I suspect we'll start seeing that with Buzz. I assume that that's part of, the point of building open standards is that you can do that. You can have different subset of stuff flowing different places. You can have different filters on those pieces. So I know someone launched an iPhone Buzz app today, and I haven't played with it yet because I haven't got an iPhone. I've got an iPod Touch, but it's that same the same sense of there'd be a common API and a bunch of different interactions with that. I think Twitter did a really good job of that, and partly by neglecting their site. But I think we're going to see more of that with these other standards, and we'll start seeing. There's something I was talking about this a bit at the end of that, where we were saying, well, how does this work for seniors? How does it work for different people? I think what we'll find is that we'll end up with a bunch of stuff that works and then takes off with one group of people. And some people like us will connect lots of streams, and others will just use this thing and not really know what it's connected to.
Yeah. It got a lot of users because of the integration to Gmail, but you're seeing a lot of users turn that off. But like Rocky said, I just deleted it. I deleted my whole. He said I was so overwhelmed with what was coming in, and he had so little. He had so little control of what was coming in, so little understanding of what was coming in, that he just turned it off and said, "Get that out of my email."
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. I mean, the problem is because Buzz privileges comments over original posts. That means that you see much more stuff from strangers than you do on Twitter.
Yes.
So if you comment on a post, I see everyone else who replies to that post pushing it back up my inbox. Yeah. And so it draws this whole strand of people, and it's not showing faces, it's not giving me any cues about them. It's just a bunch of little comments from people, and it feels like some bulletin board just stomped into my inbox what's going on. Yeah. So that's a sort of structure. It's what drives the engagement. It's what makes it interesting for the people who want lots of comments, but it makes it very odd for the people who don't. And they're going to have to find a way to make that work a bit better. And they
one way is I wish I had an option for strict reverse chronological view. I always wanted that in friend feed. I hated the thing that it kept popping up. I want to see a strict feed of what is new right now. Stop showing me what got engagement. I want to see what's new. Just show me what's new. And it's interesting that engineers are trying to fight that for a lot of reasons. It's funny. I've been talking to other people who are content guys, and they want their favorite video to stick at the top. They don't like the fact that the video disappears in 3 minutes. It bothers them. And
it's a tension. I mean, it's the tension we've had with I had this exact same problem in Technorati where we did put the newest stuff at the top, and then once we started, beyond a certain point of flow, it turns over too quickly, and you lose it. Now, with Twitter, because all of the replies are actually separate posts, they come back to the top organically, but they're not well threaded. I was having this problem this morning with Twitter where I was trying to unravel a conversation that Jeremiah Ouyang and Christina Halverson were having about the difference between social media and content strategy, and I had to sort of sit there and read both feeds and stick it together because none of the clients I had would actually make sense of it for me.
By the way, I was at Twitter last night, and they actually have the API built so that they track those threaded comments. Sure. Those threaded there's some clients, for instance, that actually share that data, right, and show you the threading.
I was playing with that. There was I forgot what they were. I was tweeting them this morning. There are some that do that, but because not all the clients actually make the in reply to fields show up correctly, you can still lose the thread. And also because you can just type in @Scobleizer rather than hitting a reply, it doesn't know which post I was replying to. So
Yep.
it can lose the thread in that way. Whereas the affordance in Buzz is much more of a, I've created a thread now and replying to it, so it feeds that back in more. And that's, this is the challenge for Salmon, because Salmon is trying to make this stuff propagate between sites, so we can have the conversation on Buzz and then follow it on friend feed or propagate it back to Twitter.
What's
or
Salmon
Facebook.
again? Remind me what Salmon is.
So Salmon is the protocol that's it's kind of like Pingback was on blogs, but designed not to be spammable. And the reason they call it Salmon is that I post my comment on one site, and it goes back, it swims upstream to the source of where that post came from, and then propagates back down again.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's fairly new. John Panzer from Google has been driving a lot of that, and the idea is to make this in reply to stuff actually propagate usefully between sites.
So do we have to wait endlessly for this to sort of gel to the point where people will actually even start using Buzz again?
The challenge is that you've got to get 2 implementations before it's useful. And between Blogger and Buzz doesn't really count. So I think that's why the WordPress thing is interesting, because they've said, okay, we'll make this stuff work in that same way. That's a good marker for being able to let the Salmon stuff propagate back across there. And I suspect we'll see that in Blogger, in WordPress, in Identica, so that status.net as it is now. We'll start seeing these stuff move back and forth between the sites fairly soon, and then we'll have another set of you put your peanut butter in my chocolate type conversations about the comments moving between sites. I'm gonna have to work out how to do that again.
All right. So why are we going to see this fairly soon? I don't get that.
Because
Twitter is not going to be. We're not going to see the full stream apparently going through. I mean, we all saw what happened when friend feed was blocked from using the Firehose. It became completely unusable as a client. I mean,
right.
Twitter is the dominant stream of information.
Right.
So, what are they waiting for at Google?
What are they waiting for at Google? They're probably waiting for Twitter to agree to let them do it. I suspect, what happened before was they tried to integrate, Facebook and Twitter without actually talking to them about it, and then got into fights with them. So I think what they're trying to do now is actually get them to say, yes, you can do this. That would be my guess. I don't know. I don't know much privy to that.
So, Robert, did you ask that question last night? As to whether or not they're letting Google are they giving Google access to the Firehose anytime soon?
Well, Google has access to their full Firehose already. Whether they're displaying it or not. Oh, you mean Google has institutional access to the Firehose. I don't know why they're not putting it into Buzz.
That's a good question.
Google not talking to each other. Yeah, that's perfectly possible.
I mean,
they're not thinking.
Google
is Buzz in the social search yet.
Yeah, Google is a tier 1 licenser of the Firehose feed from Twitter. So I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah,
I'd have to talk to the
this
Google
is what I think.
Google Buzz team to figure out why they're not implementing that in real time.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot of Indians and very few chiefs here.
Well, there hasn't been a lot of communication from the Buzz team about what their roadmap is going to be from here. We have Buzz. We know it has some good features and some disappointments. I mean, we were talking about that in the chat, about this event. We just haven't heard a lot of signals from them what they're going to fix in the next month or two and what they're going to really be doing.
Well, I mean, to some extent, what we got from DeWitt tonight was roadmap stuff, where he was saying, we're building up these open standards, we're going to make sure that these things work and connect them further. That was the basic thing he was saying there. But he's not the product
Kevin,
guy, so he's not giving you dates on it.
Kevin, that doesn't answer the real problems with Buzz. Buzz, right. The problems with Buzz that I have aren't that it's not open standards or that it doesn't interoperate. In fact, it interoperates, but it doesn't get any controls. It needs controls and it needs filtering and it needs things like spam. Friend feed gave me the ability to delete a comment, right? So, and what did that do? It made it very resistant to spam. I'm seeing spam in my Google Buzz items and I can't delete them. I have to report it and wait a couple hours for it to be deleted. They really didn't do much thinking about how to take the crowdsourced tools further. And
Yeah.
that's the real disappointment. Not that it's not,
Okay.
some
Well, I think
standard.
Right. Now, I mean, part of the answer to that is we'll have other clients to it, but we need the specs for that first. But yeah, the short-term thing is you need to push on the product team there and say, give us better user interfaces to this. But the longer-term answer is once we've got a protocol that we can use in the same way we use the Twitter API, we can have clients that behave differently, and then we can have the interesting thing,
But most users aren't going to use. Most users aren't going to use clients. I mean, even with Twitter, the advanced users use clients, but I'm on Twitter.com all the time using the standard old Twitter.com. If you don't build this stuff in at the ground level, the clients are just going to make it worse. The client guys don't have the resources to do engineering properly.
Well,
Come on, I know Seismic, okay? Seismic and TweetDeck, they have 2 guys on most of their Twitter clients. There's no way you're going to innovate at the level that a Google can innovate, and Google needs to build this stuff at the platform level and demonstrate how to do it sort of right, so that when the client adds on some cool features, it still has that level of done it right, and it still acts like every other client and the website. If the website sucks, it doesn't matter because that's how most people are going to come into Google Buzz.
Right.
Well, I mean, the website, Twitter's website
Alex
sucked.
Twitter stuff over the weekend, right?
Steve, Twitter's website sucks, but
No, it doesn't suck now. Actually, it's getting quite good. As a matter of fact, it's starting to terrify some of the third-party developers because, their mobile client looks pretty much indistinguishable from a lot of the other ones.
Sorry, I'm being checked out of the room now.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't work here anymore. They can throw me out.
All right. Well, I think that we've.
You can take it out in the lobby. You can just leave it.
You want to do that, Kevin?
On the way down.
Okay. Sure.
That'd be good.
Let me see if I can do that. Okay.
All right. I'm going to mute you while you walk.
Especially I'm carrying this sodding thing.
Robert?
Yeah.
So you can hear me better now, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think we just had a little EQ problem here.
Yeah, I was just looking at the chat rooms. Somebody made fun of me having to have salmon explained to me.
Yeah? And who was that? What brain surgeon was making fun of you? And what
Michael Silverton.
What chat room?
The chat room on Google Buzz about the event tonight.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So what are they saying in the chat room about what they found interesting about what DeWitt Clinton had to say?
He didn't have too much to say. That's the problem. I mean, I looked at the top of the chat, and there wasn't that much, even before I could start listening to the talk, about what they what he discovered. I came in sort of halfway through his talk, and he didn't really say too much about where they're going, and that was sort of disappointing.
Well, I wasn't. My impression of Google Buzz is that DeWitt is one of the few people that has anything interesting to say on Buzz.
Yeah.
So I imagine that what he was saying in the discussion was a reiteration of a lot of the points that they've been making about how they're going to integrate standards or what they consider to be standards.
Right.
And then there's, of course, some arguments that are breaking out from some people that the familiar usual suspects about how those standards are not necessarily standards. I think Daryl Basanjo has been complaining about some of that these aren't really standards. They're basically Google-initiated strategies.
Yeah.
So, the fact that WordPress is now finally bought into PubSub Hubbub, I think that's probably a pretty clear indication that however long it takes, I'm bringing you back in, Kevin.
Yeah, with Buzz, my arguments with Buzz aren't that it doesn't have integration with stuff. I mean, my Flickr photos show up there. I can argue that they're not showing up there fast enough. Like friend feed, I could even go and manually refresh and pull in the pictures really quickly so that they would show up within a couple seconds of when I posted them, and that's a little frustrating. But they show up there eventually, and YouTube videos show up there, and my blog shows up there. If I put my Twitter in there, it would show up there. Friend feed shows up there. My disagreement with Buzz isn't that it doesn't have integration with these services. It's that it either displays them poorly, like friend feed looks like crap when you import it, so I turn that off. Or it doesn't give you control of what gets displayed in your feed, and that's why I turned off Twitter, right? Because on friend feed I can turn off tweets from specific people, or overall I can turn off all tweets. But on Google Buzz I can't, and I found I got a lot more value out of the things that people were posting natively to Buzz, and so. They have a whole raft of things that they need to do on UI and giving you control of your feed before you even start talking about things like lists and better social graph control, stuff like that.
Yeah. But what I think that what we're talking about here is we're talking a little bit across purposes because there are all these things that we're used to with friend feed and to some extent Facebook that we would like to see happening, but there's this, they're not even processing Twitter at a rate that makes Buzz acceptable as an aggregator compared to Seismic or TweetDeck or any of the
that's true.
numerous things out there in the environment. So
yeah, absolutely. If you do want tweets in there, you want them to show up within a second or two, if not faster, and Buzz ain't doing that. My Flickr photos are really frustrating because I want to post photos from events and have them show up right away so that we can have a conversation about the photos. And sometimes it takes hours. My Olympic photos, I would upload them at night and I would go to bed an hour later and they still wouldn't be up, and then I'd wake up in the morning and they would be there and have a conversation going. But it's really frustrating to wait that long for things to show up in the feed. Right,
and if you're using it as a client, a micro messaging client, you're out of luck.
Yeah, no, you need instant. You need them to appear instantly and have an instant back and forth, especially with tweets.
So as far as the lack of filtering tools, I think that's a big problem. But it's one that they could manage over time if they developed some sort of connection to the existing environment, which they haven't.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, do you think that? It feels like this logjam of a bunch of evangelists who they pulled in from various companies and various constituencies around these open standards, all essentially talking to each other, but not to anybody that is in a position to get anything accomplished.
No, I'm not sure that's quite true. I think that...
Well, I would hope it's not true. That's why it's a show as opposed to us sending each other email.
I think the point is we're starting to see a bunch of useful interpretation of this stuff now, and it has been going for a while. There's been a bunch of sites that do this well, but they're just not Google. If you look at ClickSet, if you look at Superfeeder, if you look at a bunch of these smaller sites, they're making this stuff work and flow back and forth and starting to solve some of these pieces. But Buzz sort of raises the stakes a bit because suddenly there's a reason to interoperate with this. And I suspect WordPress signing up for PubSub Hubbub has a lot to do with Buzz and a bit to do with friend feed, but because both of those adopted it. But it's that means that suddenly we've got a way to flow information between multiple sites with the sort of blog posty format.
Mm-hmm.
If you fit that together with the version of WordPress they did that was very Twitter-like, that Twitter-ish theme of WordPress, that could start getting interesting. Cause
but how much buy-in did you're talking about? BuddyPress, basically?
Not BuddyPress. I can't remember what it was called. There was another version of WordPress they did that was basically a very Twitter theme.
Uh-huh.
It was just like designed to let you put lots of short posts in and follow them. So I expect we'll start.
But that's
seeing,
not a conversation format, so it doesn't have a real chance of moving the needle. I mean, I think that the WordPress integration is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Dave Weiner went with, worked so hard to get RSS Cloud on that platform. That was a big deal for him, but it's much less of a big deal now that WordPress supports it.
Yeah.
So, that will help, but I think that politically the real tension is going to be, what is the problem? I mean, we've identified it in this conversation that apparently this is one hand not, washing the other. In terms of there's somebody in Google who owns full access to the fire hose, yet that hasn't been communicated to the Buzz team.
Right. It may just be that they don't want that much flow yet. It may just be that they want to make sure that they're comfortable when they turn that on. And there's a bunch of translation issues too, because the Twitter the Twitter syntax has its own set of conventions to it. Unless you translate those into the useful referencing, if you can't make the @ bridge well, it's gonna feel odd. So I think what they've got at the moment is you can do it, but it won't feel great, and then they'll spend a chunk of time to try and make that work.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole idea of trying to map to the @reply syntax, a syntax that was developed by users, not by anybody who was a system architect, and then basically ripped apart and pulled back at various times by Twitter over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Who cares about @replies? I mean, I still don't. Track, eliminates the need for @replies. So, and there seems to be a fairly active search, but what you're saying is that Google, with all of its resources, apparently is months behind. How many programmers did FriendFeed have to put all this stuff together over the past year?
14.
Yeah, and
Well,
maybe
13.
and maybe a core of 8 of those guys. So it doesn't appear to be a problem of resources. It appears to be more of a problem of interest or commitment. And I wonder how long Buzz is going to sort of wallow in this sort of naivete before they start to build this thing out.
Yeah.
I mean, if they continue to irritate people, it's going to be far more damaging than the so-called privacy exploits.
Well, and they already have the churn I'm seeing on Buzz is extreme. It makes Twitter's churn problem seem pretty minor, and I think they really misjudged what it takes to build a world-class social system today.
I'm not so sure about that. It seems to me that they got so much of it right at the upper level, but as soon as you start talking to them about how are they going to build out an API structure so that clients can have access to it, they seem to not really care about it.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to the Campfire one next Tuesday?
No, I'm going to be out of town.
I
Okay.
haven't had an invite to that. I obviously need to poke somebody.
Yeah, I'm going to the Campfire. Google has this Campfire, and I'm gonna pull Bradley aside and other people and ask them what's going on.
Right.
I hope to hear a lot more of their intent of what they're really going to focus on over the next month. But they really need to ship an update to this pretty quickly. If they let it go 6 months, it's dead.
Well, I think that the media has really not done a particularly good job on this story. I've laid off mostly because I was hoping to have people like Chris Messina and Brett Slack and etc. On the show, and they were basically told that they couldn't do it because they wanted to control the the issues as it related to the privacy stuff. Well, I think whatever hit they took on that, they've taken, and I still don't see that happening. And I thought that perhaps the DeWitt talking at this event was an indication that they were beginning to start to grapple with this. But I don't think Facebook has done. They basically are very silent on this as well. And at some point, people have to be able to start to say, if you guys are not willing to discuss at least your philosophy about what you're trying to do in any but the vaguest of terms, then maybe we should start asking them questions.
Well, even Twitter, is becoming organized internally according to teams, and the guys who are building the APIs, they have no clue what the search team's doing. And they're just trying to build APIs so that everybody, including internal customers like Twitter, like search or clients or whatnot, that Twitter's going to build, are dealt with the same way that external developers are. Twitter's really trying to become a platform company like the way Microsoft talks internally. And that's fascinating too. That even when you find one guy who's really smart on the platform and really informed on the platform, they aren't very informed on anything else that's happening, even inside their own company.
Well, I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, it's not.
Right. I mean, they're trying to protect their intellectual property.
You're not wasting your time thinking about searching.
Right.
It's really noisy behind Kevin.
And we're running out of time here. So, Kevin, you want to just sort of wrap this up? I mean, obviously, you are more optimistic.
You're dropping out, Steve. Can't quite hear you.
Obviously, you're more optimistic in the long run about what is going to go on here in terms of the integration of standards.
Yeah.
In the short run, I mean, are we talking 2 or 3 months before we see any real activity here?
We'll see. I mean, I think we'll see more integration of the activity stream stuff, because where we've been with that is that a lot of people have been publishing it, not a lot of people have been consuming it, and now we've got a fairly big consumer of it in bars as well as the consumer we've had in Microsoft. So that will start seeing those pieces fit together a bit more. And we've got an activity streams get together tomorrow night to try and iterate on this and get towards a 1.0 version of that spec. So that's encouraging to me. The fact that Monica moved from MySpace to Facebook is also encouraging, because that implies to me that Facebook takes this stuff seriously and is going to care about publishing this stuff as well. So we may start seeing that better integration there. And I'm hopeful Google and Facebook can get over there. We don't trust each otherness and actually interoperate on this stuff. Because there's, I'm seeing a bit more good faith there than I've seen before, but I suspect that'll take some time.
And Robert, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm a user, and I'm in a holding pattern until they signal where they're going to take this and start shipping some new versions of it. None of these things totally satisfy me. Twitter has its problems. Facebook has its problems. FriendFeed has its problems. Google has a lot of users, or had a lot of users before they turned out. And that makes it a lot more fun than FriendFeed was for the last couple months. But I'm really disappointed. I keep waiting to hear what they're going to do, and I haven't heard it. I didn't hear it tonight, so we're back to Twitter.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll get. Maybe they have something at the campfire. It depends whether that's to do with this or not.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm watching all four. I'm on LinkedIn now, as well, and I have thousands of people, and Twitter is getting much more flow and much more interesting flow than the other systems. It's just it doesn't have that conversationality to it. It's all everybody's broadcasting on Twitter. They're not.
They're conversing, but they're only doing it in a very loose way. You're not being drawn into a particular conversation.
Weird people are conversing, not the upper echelon of content producers.
Weird.
You don't see TechCrunch talking to any of its users on Twitter. Not the way you can do it on Buzz. Mashable comes.
There is no conversation on Twitter
or Gillmor Gang. We're all able to talk with our followers in Buzz in a much deeper way than we can on Twitter. Twitter is all about come over and check this out. Come over and check this out. You can use it for conversation, but it's really hard to.
You can have a conversation, but it has to be short, and you point a link somewhere else if you're going to do something longer. That's true.
Yeah. No,
Well, if you
I'd
want to
go
get
over
something
Buzz. I mean,
accomplished,
look at the Buzz page; it's still going even after the event's been over half an hour. You know, and it's still people are still there and still talking to us. So that's really really cool.
well, maybe next time we'll integrate Buzz into the Building 43 interface along with the friend feed chat. We're moving the friend feed chat to a private conversation, just to encourage people to come into the Newsgang app. That's beta.newsgang.net, and then you can watch it just like the public chat.
Yeah.
All right. I want to thank you guys for staying up this late and doing this. This is Steve Gillmor. This has been the Gillmor Gang. I want to thank Rackspace for sponsoring the show, without whom this would not exist, at least not on video. And the same thing is true for the New Tech folks who have created in the TriCaster a fantastic way of us being able to bring real time to video. And I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.